Welcome back to the Bootleg Corner. It is movie review hours once again. Shogun episode 8 is our meal for the day, and all things considered, this might just be one of the most emotionally charged episodes of this series. Well, we remember that Nagakado was our soul death in the last episode, sleeping on a wet rock and bashing his head on another stone while attempting to kill Saiki on his own even after Toranaga had surrendered. So this episode begins with a heavy feeling of grief around Toranaga and his men. While his men may not feel as much grief as he does, they know their lord is in pain, and so they must be in pain, and at the same time weighing the cost and wisdom of Toranaga's decision to submit to the council led by Ishido. Toranaga is grieving, he is quiet and tired, and has developed a cough while bags have formed around his eyes. His son might have been a rash and feckless boy, but he was his son all the same. No matter his actions, Toranaga would have preferred him alive rather than dead. But then, whatever his faults in life, Nagakado's death has managed to provide a time window of 49 days which are allocated to Toranaga for his mourning period before he is escorted by Saiki to Osaka to face the music. Ishido, while in Osaka, seems to be making plans of his own, and he wants the hand of Lady Ochiba in marriage. I mean, talk about infatuation and carefully laid plans. He makes his proposal to Lady Ochiba, and while I'm watching the scene, I'm thinking, was this part of her plan, or has Lady Ochiba bitten off more than she can chew? She already controls the regents through Ishido and doesn't need the marriage, as her place as mother of the heir is secure. But Ishido is just the regent, even though very powerful, but still a placeholder until the heir comes of age. What better way to elevate himself by a marriage to the heir's mother? So despite being under the clutches of Lady Ochiba, it appears there is a working brain in his head after all. He did not rise to the regent by accident. Now Toranaga's men are still defiant despite their lord's surrender, as he is still laid low by grief and he doesn't attend his son's funeral. The vassals, however, deck out in full war armor for this funeral, not just defying Toranaga's wishes for peaceful surrender, but also disrespecting the occasion of Nagakado's funeral. Nagakado's body is taken into a prepared pyre and lit on fire, and it leads me to think about burial procedures in 1600s Japan. Were they more inclined to burn or bury a body, or did it depend on the status of the individual or wishes of those in charge of the funeral? I'll talk about that at the end of the video.
As if that is not enough, Toranaga's next meeting is with the Christian monk missionary who tells him that they tried their best but couldn't sway Kiyama and Ono, as these lords would not move to Toranaga's side. But these are things Toranaga's spies have already reported, and so it is just redundant news to him. So loyalties are shifting and questions are being asked of Toranaga's commitment to ruination. While the lords show their displeasure with whispers and hostile attitudes, such as wearing military attire to Nagakado's wedding, John Blackthorne is marketing his services to the next man in line, our resident betrayer, Yabushige. Yabushige surprisingly declines Blackthorne's offer, and Mariko reports this to Blackthorne, who is in the least bit shocked, but predicts that Yabushige will change his mind once he sees that there is no trick behind Toranaga's submission to Ishido and the regents. On the other hand, Buntaro is trying to repair his marriage with Mariko, and his solution is death. I mean, what is wrong with these people? Why does everything have consequences in the extreme, and is honor so important that they refuse to live without it? Anyways, Mariko is no longer interested in death and declines the offer. She, who had been begging for it for years now, gets the offer on a platter, but is not interested in dying with her husband for any reason. Next up, we have the most emotionally charged and intense scene of this series so far. Toranaga is meeting with his vassals to question their decision with his son's burial and to reaffirm their loyalty to him by signing the letter of submission to the regents. The men who signed the letter would have to be honor-bound to commit seppuku alongside Toranaga, so basically they were to follow him into certain death. Now, these are men who have been with him for a long while, and we can see their faces lined with age, so they are not newcomers at all. They've also known Toranaga to be clever and full of surprises, so it is no doubt that they expected some explanation for this rude and some plan of attack. After all, they were going to Osaka literally being escorted into the capital. So all they had to do was bide their time and spring their attack. But Toranaga is not doing any of this. Rather, he is committed to the surrender and says enough blood has been shed after his son's death. The letter of submission is surprisingly signed by Yabushige and Omi, but the other vassals demand to be told of the real plan, while Yabushige rebukes them and insists this is the end. No one can believe this is it, and the ultimate test comes when Hiromatsu, his longtime friend and vassal, challenges Toranaga to withdraw his submission or he would commit seppuku right before his eyes. During this scene, our hearts are beating as if we were literally a part of the events in the scenes, but Toranaga will not yield, and neither will Hiromatsu. And then Buntaro is called up by Hiromatsu to assist in the seppuku. Buntaro wants to follow his father into death, but is ordered to stay alive. Hiromatsu, to everyone's surprise, takes out his knife and plunges it into his belly and dragging it across. Talk about guts. Buntaro ends his suffering by cutting off his head before he lingers any further. If you remember, Toranaga promised the Portuguese a portion of land to build their church, and he also made arrangements for Lady Kiku to build courtesan quarters in Edo. Well, in a stroke of craziness, he gave these two sides land side by side in the same plot, and this made me laugh so much watching the police race when he realized that the church's neighbor was going to be a household of courtesans. But then we later found out that this is an elaborate twist by Toranaga. Hiromatsu had played his role to perfection and finally rolled the crucial dice to convince both the regents and Toranaga's vassals that Toranaga's surrender is real as hell. This is a con at work here, and Toranaga does not trust anyone with the details except for Mariko, who has a mission to execute for him as she follows Yabushige to Osaka. As expected, Yabushige had retraced his step and aligned with Blackthorn, and it was funny to see how predictable these two tonkoots are. This episode review was titled Checks and Balances because of the give and take nature of the events, extremes, requests, and ultimatums are plenty, with the necessary drama and planning to counter and convince the opposition. This is still the Bootleg Corner. Don't forget to subscribe, keep it locked in, and we'll be back.